holding power, whether red or blue. They could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. They like our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns, you know, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan, rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a day late, but it's still coffee talk, right? Got an opportunity to take a little break, and we're going to do a little bit of visiting. So I have my coffee. I hope you have yours, or the beverage of your choice for the evening. First off, for those of you that are brand new, let me introduce myself. My name is Daniel Miller, and I'm president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. And this is the time in the middle of the week where I take a break from work and fire up a ye old camera and visit with you guys, answer your questions, talk about whatever you want to talk about, and sometimes and a lot of times talk about what I want to talk about, because this is really my time to decompress and hang out with you guys, aka people I really, really want to hang out with. So going to be a real interesting one, and apologies for the sliding of the day. Yesterday was extremely busy, and there was just no way. I mean, I kind of figured that thing out as we were spiraling toward the evening, that there was not going to be any kind of feasible way to do coffee talk. So here I am, right? Full day behind, and probably a full another 6 to 8 hours ahead the way it's looking. So gonna be super interesting tonight. But look, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit about that action alert that went out from the TNM about the State Board of Education and the Texas history courses. Going to dispel some of the rumors, separate myth from fact, and let you know some of the ones on the SBOE that are thinking right, and some of those that are definitely preaching the party line and in for this change. So, don't worry, we'll get all your questions answered there. And of course, we'll talk about the Catalyst campaign, introduce it to those of you who do not know, talk a little bit about where we're headed with that, and really, I mean, just kind of full steam ahead, right? So we'll talk about the Catalyst campaign. And then, of course, look, your questions, right? If you have questions and you're watching on either of the YouTube channels, drop them in chat, or the broadcast on any of the Facebook channels. Those all feed to a little section of the screen over here. But Kara is over there, and she is trying to catch your questions and send them over to me as best she can. And then, of course, if you want to just say, look, the chat is just too much, I don't want it to get lost, you could drop it via email to coffeetalk@tnm.org. And let me just go ahead and get this out of the way before anyone says anything, because I know you will. Look, I do own something other than a suit. It happens. No, it's like Casual Friday, getting started a little bit early, right? Just it's the way it's got to be, man. It's been one of those days, right? I hadn't had to suit up, hadn't had to put on a tie, but the work continues nonetheless. All right. So before we get moving and grooving, I do want to let you guys know something. Let's just go ahead and rip this Band-Aid off now. We're going to continue to do coffee talk on Wednesday nights, right? That's nothing's different there. However, we are changing the time. We're going to go ahead and slide it 30 minutes early, starting straight up at 9:00 p.m. So same day, but new time, 9 p.m. And of course, that's, events permitting, because I am about to be back on the road again. I told you guys this. Had a little bit of a breather after the LG campaign, but back on the road. And you're going to get to come out, get to hear a whole lot about where the TNM is, with our successes, where we're headed next, and how we intend to build on the momentum of effectively having two of the three political parties here in Texas calling for a vote on TEXIT and sitting on top of 66% of likely voters in favor of TEXIT, right? I mean, that's good news to share with everyone. So, we'll be out on the road talking about where we are, a little bit about where we've been, but more importantly, where we are headed. That said, let's go ahead and talk about the SBOE thing, right? So, you guys all received an email this morning. Those of you that are on social media or have downloaded the Tnm app, which, by the way, if you want to get that, head over to tnm.me/app, right? You got an alert notification. We sent out an action alert yesterday. And of course, those of you, like I said, I think this morning, where we talk about a change that's getting ready to happen related to the Texas history curriculum, the State Board of Education. So let me just walk you through a little bit about what's going on here. It was not necessarily clear, and of course, the ones that are really pushing for this change are doing their dead level best to muddy the water, which we predicted they would, and we predicted the way in which they would do it. And that's because we have impeccable relationships and great sources on the inside over there. Okay, so we know what's happening. But here's the gist of it. We saw an alert that went out. Our field director, Paul Roby, got an email about this issue that was being sent out, and it was related to, and essentially what it said was that the State Board of Education was going to meet on, August 1st, right? Just right around the corner, August 1st, to hear a report from a working group, a committee, whatever it is, that was going to make a recommendation, and it was in the draft stages, right? But the draft that had been circulated already ahead of time to members of the State Board of Education essentially called for getting rid of the fourth grade Texas history unit, breaking the Texas history unit up into taking the same amount of material, breaking it up, mixing it in with U.S. history and world history, and then smearing it across all the elementary grades. Now, we hear things like that, and we're like, okay, what's going on? But that's not what the alert said. The alert said they were just going to remove the fourth grade unit. It didn't talk about the rest of it. So what did we do? We spun up the phone. We called our people. And this is where it's super helpful that you've got a member. There's a member on the TNM's advisory board that is also on the State Board of Education, Dr. Matt Robinson. So called Matt and just got the lowdown about what is happening with this particular thing. And it's exactly what I just described. They want to take the draft proposal that has been circulated, is proposing eliminating the dedicated fourth grade unit for Texas history, breaking it up into pieces and smearing it between K through 6. Now, the comeback, the proponents of this plan say that we're not teaching less Texas history, but we're teaching more Texas history because they're getting it every grade. Well, that sounds really good. The TNM has certainly advocated in the past that public school children of all ages and all grades should be exposed and taught more Texas history and more Texas patriotism. They need to understand how awesome Texas is, and they need to understand what our history is, and let it help them understand why it is that we need to go where we need to go toward independence. But the lunacy of this, right? It's where they want to break it apart, the same amount, break it apart, smear it across all these grade levels, and then they want to pitch to us that somehow that's more. And I equated it today, talking internally with some of the people here at the TNM. I said, if you take a quantity of peanut butter and you spread it on bread, a slice of bread, you got some coverage, right? But if you take that same amount of peanut butter and spread it across a football field, you don't suddenly magically have more peanut butter, right? It's just smeared over a larger area, but it's no more. And in fact, I think you could argue that it is so thin that it has almost no impact at all, especially when you want to break it up and you want to mix it in with U.S. history and world history, right? So, what we did, what we do, right? Which is we let everybody know, and we say, here are the people you need to go talk to. You need to go let the members of the State Board of Education know that this is not okay. And while we advocate for more Texas history, this ain't it. This is not it. And of course, good. It's always really nice to anticipate their comebacks, right? Because look, they didn't disappoint. We've been getting this feedback all day from people that have been following through on the action alert. And I'll show you this one, right? I'll see if I can squint really good and try to read this one. But this is from Georgina Cecilia Perez, who's State Board of Education D1. And essentially what she's saying is what we told everyone they were going to say. Oh, this is not less, this is more, because it's spread out more. And so we're big proponents of having great, lots of Texas history, and even go so far as to use this line here, to allow teachers and students to learn our great state's history much deeper instead of the mile wide and an inch deep approach of the past. Well, wait a minute. Wait just a second. Isn't that draft proposal? Isn't that exactly what the draft proposal is proposing happens to the curriculum? Is that they take Texas history and this, look, I'm all for it. Let's jam as much Texas history in there as possible. I want our kids knowing so much Texas history that when they go out on the playground, they're playing Colonel Travis drawing lines in the sand, or they're playing the battle of. I want those things. I want them to be taught that the defenders of the Alamo were heroes, right? But that's not what's happening here. That's not what's happening. It's the same amount, just spread out. So it's not anymore. I think it's easy to argue that it, in fact, gives Texas history much less impact. And I'm going to tell you that it's very reminiscent of the nonsense that happened with the Reimagine the Alamo plan, right? As the committee there in San Antonio, walking hand in hand with, the General Land Office and doing this whole Reimagine the Alamo thing. There were some great components of it. But one of the things that set off alarm bells was when the statement was made that the Battle of the Alamo is just one small part of a 10,000-year-long history. And this idea that somehow they wanted to de-emphasize the Battle of the Alamo and talk more about everything else that was around it. And it was an attempt to water down that seminal, pivotal moment in Texas history that helps define who we are as a people. It was to minimalize and marginalize. And let's just look, all we're going to do is just take a little bit off the edges. We're not getting rid of it. We're just going to put it in a much larger context. Well, at some point, you water things down so much that they have absolutely no impact. And that's what it feels like here. And look, we're not the only ones who believe this, right? We didn't send out the first alert on this. And there was already opposition mounting inside the State Board of Education to this proposal. In fact, Chris Milton, one of our district directors, reached out to Dr. Audrey Young. She's the member of the State Board of Education for District 8. And she said, thanks for reaching out. And here's what she says. As a ninth generation Texan, I too believe in the history of our great state and the importance of ensuring that students in all grade levels learn about Texas. I do not want to see the concentrated efforts of teaching Texas history to be removed or watered down in the 4th or 7th grade. I do want Texas to be added into all the grade levels so that each child who moves in will also learn a little bit about Texas as they grow into becoming contributing citizens of our state. So you see what she's saying. It's not the same smeared out. Dr. Young saying, let's add more and at every level, K through 12. Let's just bombard these people. And her rationale is exactly the same as one of the, why we asked, and I'll go over here and look on the 4th action item. Says also let them know you want more classroom time dedicated to teaching and promoting Texas history and Texas patriotism in all grade levels. It is that reason right there that we included that line so that you could let these people know. Okay. So, it's been quite interesting to see. And so far, if you've been following the action alert and you've been calling the members of the State Board of Education, by the way, which are linked in that article on the TNM website. I'll show you right till end. Boom, there it is. It'll be to the State Board of Education members at that link, and you can go check them out. And, as always, we say the best to reach out to people who represent you. It's a phone call or a visit, right? It's actually more than that, but you don't have a lot of time. Okay. Now, some people have asked why we're not encouraging people to go testify and give their statements yet. Well, that's because it's not coming up for a vote, right? You have to understand the process. And so, what you need to do right now is let your voice be heard on this. In other words, get real vocal on this issue with the members of the State Board of Education, and it may never make it to that first hurdle, right? Which will be about a month from now, which is when, if this thing still has any life in it after you guys are done kicking the crap out of it, then we will encourage you to go testify, right? Because this thing it doesn't go through just one vote and then it's done. There's several, right? So this is all about strategy. This is all about tactics. Call. If and call all of them, right? That's been another thing that's been asked. Should I just call my member of the SBOE? Sure. Absolutely. Not only do you need to call them, you need to develop a relationship with them, and they need to know who you are by name and know what you're about and understand that you're going to call every time something comes up crazy like this, right? But don't hesitate to call the others. Look, if you want to be the teacher's pet, you want to go for the gold star, then call all of them. It's not like there's a lot. So you want to just roll down that list and give those guys a call, go do it. Go do it. They need to hear from you, right? Whether they represent you or not, their decisions still affect you because it affects the schools, and you're a taxpayer, so you count. Okay. So that is really the long and the short of the situation. So I can tell you right now, there are some really solid folks on that State Board of Education that are doing their dead level best to represent for Texas and make absolutely sure that your viewpoint as someone who supports the ideas of independence and liberty and really this legacy of independence that Texas has, they're there to represent you, and they're doing their dead level best. But it's interesting because the legislature and the governor, they get so much of the attention. The State Board of Education gets to run under the radar. It was very shocking to people when sometime back, I don't know, a couple of years, whenever it was, when we had to spin everybody up to go to battle in the State Board of Education because they wanted to remove references in the Texas history curriculum to Colonel Travis and Sam Houston, people like that. They wanted to remove language from the curriculum that referred to them as heroes because they said that the word hero is a value judgment, right? And it's that, again, that same sort of mentality, that progressive neo-Marxist nonsense that basically would just love to obliterate Texas. A lot of these people are real Texas haters, right? They live here, but they hate it. They want to go in there and they want to try to erase what makes us us. And they want to do that through indoctrinating our kids. And they're willing to do it over generations, right? Doesn't have to be quick, but occasionally they try to overreach. And when you're going to go in and try to say the Alamo defenders are not heroes because that's a value judgment, then what you're telling us is, well, you don't value what they did. You don't find it heroic. And so you'd prefer that word be removed, that reference, because it's really about your agenda and your ideology and not about what makes Texas, Texas. So, not like we haven't had to do battle with State Board of Education before. And we will continue to fight this. And look, as always, if you are not receiving our action alerts, make absolutely sure you have gone to the website and you have registered your support for the TNM. When you do, you'll be able to get your action alerts via email. But additionally, download the TNM mobile app, right? This was the first opportunity for us to send out an action alert via our push message notification system on the TNM app. And I got to tell you, it was super cool being able to drop messages out, instantaneously to all of our folks, to get them on the phones, to start spinning up the SBOE and letting these guys know that we want to keep Texas, Texas, and we do not want Texas history watered down. It's not acceptable. It's absolutely nuts that we have to fight battles like this, right? So anyway, that's the story. If you want more, head over to tnm.me to the website. Look in the news section. You'll see the action alert there. It'll give you all the details you need, the things you specifically need to say when you call. And look, while you're over there, let me also just give a plug. As a registered supporter, you have access to the TNM Academy, okay, and downloads and a lot of other things. There are a ton of resources that we have on the website. There's a course in the TNM Academy called the Legislative Action Workshop. And one of the first lessons in there is how to effectively advocate for the Texas independence referendum. But what's great about that particular lesson in the workshop course is that the tactics, what we ask you to do, we talk about the how effective certain communication methods are and why they're that way, right? So it applies not just to the legislature. It can apply to your local government. It could apply to the governor's office. It could apply to the SBOE. So I would encourage you to register your support, go look in courses. And I do believe that every registered user on the website is automatically enrolled in the Legislative Action Workshop. Additionally, if you are logged into the site and you go to action and downloads, there's a lot of handy guides over there that you can download, PDFs on the legislative process. I mean, just tons and tons of material. So go check it out. All right. Well, look, I've got plenty of time tonight. Oh, let me do this too. Let me talk about the Catalyst campaign. I keep forgetting that my time has shifted. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, I haven't been talking very long at all. And here it is, right? Let's talk about the Catalyst campaign. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me put that bad boy up right there. That is the website to the Catalyst campaign. The Catalyst campaign is the single largest fundraiser that the Texas nationalist movement has ever launched. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into all the numbers that I went into last week. I'm just going to encourage you that if you want to know more about this campaign, head over to the web address that's on your screen right now, tnm.me/catalyst. And if you want to understand a little more context about why this is so important that we do it and why our target and goal is so high, go watch last week's Coffee Talk. Look at how much money is pouring into statewide races and understand that we're going to have to do probably 10 to 20x that to win a TEXIT vote, right? We're there. We've got the support. We know if it goes to the polls tomorrow, it wins, right? We know this. It's getting it there that's going to be the challenge. And as we get ready to head not only into this general election, but into the next legislative session, there's a lot of work that we've got to get done. And unfortunately, it takes money to get that stuff done, but we also have to look beyond that, right? Because if we are, or when we are successful in the next legislative session and we get a bill across the finish line, understand what that means. Because the draft legislation right now and the plank in the Republican Party platform call for that vote to be in November of 2023. So that means you have a legislative session that ends at the end of May, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's a dead run, a short run to debate the TEXIT issue, to go out and do a whole bunch of public education, but additionally to fight off Project Fear, right? Because they're gonna drop $1 billion on us, telling us how TEXIT means that companies are going to leave and we're going to throw grandma in a ditch and all these sorts of things, and we have to combat that. Okay. While it seems easy to us to say, well, we got the 66%, it's not enough. We have to be able to combat Project Fear, and we have to be able to run what will perhaps be one of the largest statewide get out the vote campaigns ever run, ever. It's not enough to have the support if they sit home on the couch and do nothing, right? So again, let me just throw that up there. Head over to tnm.me/catalyst. You're going to find out a lot more about that fundraising campaign, and it's huge, man. There's some really innovative things that are happening with this campaign, right? We've got sort of the thing you've seen before, the spiffs, you give a certain amount, you get this, that sort of thing. But there is an amazing, innovative piece to this puzzle that I cannot get into tonight on this broadcast, but you'll find out more about it at tnm.me/catalyst. And trust me, you are going to want to see what's happening, because no one's done what we're doing as usual. It's pretty crazy. Okay. All right, let's get to some of your questions, man. You guys are slamming and jamming them tonight, so let's do this. We got a bunch via email, so I will bounce back and forth between chat and email. So let's tie these up. Okay, here's a good question. This is a quick one. What is the actual name of the app? Same as the website, tnm.me. So just go search for tnm.me. But I'm going to tell you, if you have not registered your support, you will not be able to log into it. So you need to make sure you go to the website, register your support, set up your account, and then you'll be able to log into the app. And when you're in there, you get access to all the interesting social media functions too, which is pretty cool. Okay, Danny. Danny says, will Texas have a vice president as well? And will Texas have a strong military force in North America? Yeah, I mean, I suspect so. I mean, we've got a governor, we've got a lieutenant governor. Prior to that, when we were a republic, we had a president and vice president. So there's no reason to think that we wouldn't. And, the question about having a strong military force is, I'm pretty sure one of the big reasons that Texans are supporting TEXIT in record numbers is because they don't feel like that our security here is where it needs to be, right? Whether it's the border issues or the fact that the United States military has shifted from teaching our people to, defend the country, right? Or take out an enemy to tell me about your feelings, and then you can figure out which bathroom to pee in, right? I can tell you that a lot of people here in Texas are probably pretty concerned about that. When Russia and China and many other major powers in the world are training their soldiers to be soldiers, to execute orders and to kill things and destroy things in a time of war, we're teaching ours it's okay to accept a fellow Marine wearing a skirt in the mess hall. That's not acceptable. Texans aren't having it. And it definitely has an effect on national security, especially when you have a border that's as porous as we've got. So will we have a strong military force? Absolutely. And we have the GDP, and we'll have an even larger GDP to support it if that's what we choose. Okay, here we go. Here's a great question. If we get rid of all politicians and political parties, what form of government would the Republic of Texas become? Would we be a direct democracy where the people make all laws and bills? Well, look, I can tell you Texas is currently a constitutional republic, and I will throw this up here so you can see the mission of the TNM. Our mission is to secure and protect the political, cultural, and the economic independence of the nation of Texas. But here's the part that people miss a lot. And to restore and protect a constitutional republic and the inherent rights of the people of Texas. So, we will, as an organization, always advocate to be, for Texas to be a constitutional republic. And that's where we are. I mean, I can't think that Texans would suddenly make a choice to do something radically different like a direct democracy. Although I suspect that given all of the fight that we have had, that we're going to have to fight to just be able to vote on the issue of Texas independence, I suspect you're going to see major post-Texit constitutional reform. It is almost a given. It's not necessary. It's not necessary as a pre-Texit step or as even one of the first things we do. Although, I've talked about this before. There are 4 phases after the Texit vote. 4 issues: constitutional, statutory, international covenants, treaties, and agreements, and the negotiated issues. And in the constitutional side of this, it's about amending the existing constitution to make it a constitution for a self-governing independent nation. No need to draft a new one when you can do a wholesale amendment like was done with the Deadwood amendments in the 60s. Okay. So That's just the way that works. But on the other side of that, right? Because you got to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is that we get independent, right? We get independent as quickly as possible and begin to forge our own path. But the other side of that, and as we have seen time and time again around the world with independence movements, is on the other side of that independence, it is about making serious reforms in governance. And I got to tell you, I made this joke more times than I can count. And literally the first campaign stop that I had after I announced I was running for lieutenant governor, I got asked about the size of our Constitution. And I made a joke out on the campaign trail. Don Huffines, you guys know Don. Don was carrying around a copy of the pocket U.S. Constitution, and somebody saw it and said, "Why don't we do one of those for the Texas Constitution?" And I said, "How big is your pocket?" Right? We need some constitutional reforms. There's no doubt about that. But again, everything in its time, right? Take care of the big things first, and then you move on to the next step. Because let's be honest, if we focus on constitutional reform now, not that we don't need to make proposals this side of TEXIT and work some of those issues, but we have to remember that so much of the way that we have to maneuver around government is because of our relationship with the federal system, right? You take the federal system out of the equation, that debate, so many debates completely change, right? And you start dealing with, so for example, when I was campaigning, I was advocating for a constitutional amendment to introduce a recall provision into the Constitution. So we need recall. I got tired of getting asked during COVID, how can we get rid of Abbott? Abbott shut down our churches. He shut down our schools. He shut down our businesses. Even though Dan Patrick said it didn't happen, right? We know what happened. And I kept getting asked, how do we recall Abbott? How do we do this? It's like, you don't. You get a bite at the apple every 4 years for those top levels. And you miss your shot now. You miss your shot when that time comes. You're stuck for 4 years. Okay. Unless you can figure out some way to get them to resign, you're stuck. So while I might advocate for a recall provision now, I think it would be an interesting debate post TEXIT on the recall issue, because but for our relationship with the federal government, our state level, those kind of top level officials might be a little more well behaved, right? So not saying that we wouldn't need a recall provision, but it might be a little less urgent. Again, just food for thought. All right. Man, I need some more coffee. And by the way, let me go ahead and say this too. Right before we even started, Beverly Alford gave a $49.99 super chat right there. And Beverly, thank you so much for that. All that in the super chat goes straight to the TNM and our work, and helps us get things done, right? I mean, it's just, we really do appreciate it. And I see in the chat, I see Stacy talking about, she's like, 52 people need to hit the like button. Yes. And I'm going to tell you, if you are, and if you're watching on Facebook, be sure to like, share, comment, all those things. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those numbers make a difference. And look, I know some people are not happy that we're still on YouTube, but you know what? A lot of people are. And we have to take our message everywhere we can. But we're also broadcasting on Roku, right? We have our own Roku channel. We're broadcasting on TNM TV on the app. So we're doing our things, right? We're making it happen. Okay, here's a good question. Daniel, when or how will there be a phone calling campaign? I'm ready to do phone calls / time for the TNM. Great question, and thank you so much for publicly volunteering. Let me show you how you can make that happen. We will be spinning up the phones sooner, probably rather than later. But look, I would encourage everyone to go to the website and log in. Register your support first and foremost. But when you hit that volunteer button, right? And volunteer. And when you fill out the volunteer form, you will have an opportunity to say that. And you can say, look, I want a phone bank. I want to be part of our peer-to-peer texting team, or look, I'm willing to go block walk or door. Look, I'm a digital warrior. You'll have the opportunity to do that. So sure to do that. Head over if you haven't volunteered already. Be sure to go log in, and of course that page. Let me throw that bad boy up there for you. Oh, there it is. Man, it's hard to see this thing. You can become a volunteer by heading over to tnm.me/volunteer, right? Or hit that volunteer link at the top of the page on tnm.me. All right. Let's take some more questions. Man, you guys are piling them on me tonight. I love it. Keep them coming. Drop them in the chat or the comments on the Facebook pages. Let's go over here to email, okay? And of course, we can't show these on the screen, but we'll throw them up here. Okay. Ralph wants to know, do you know where this proposal came from? Talking about the SBOE thing. We are playing defense rather than offense. How do we get on offense? TEXIT, then eliminate the SBOE. The SBOE is not necessarily the problem, and it's not that we're playing defense. We're playing anything but defense. In fact, this is part and parcel of the fight that we have to fight for good governance here in Texas, right? So the fact that we got ahead of this and are jumping in this and going, pedal to the metal right now, that's not defense. Defense is when they are almost done with it and we're just finding out about it and having to mount some kind of last minute, last ditch effort to stop it. No, it's like the Alamo thing, right? We fought that battle since 2009, right? That, all this stuff with the cenotaph and the reimagine the Alamo and everything. We were fighting this thing back in 2009. Okay. So, we're typically ahead of the curve on everything. And, this one's no different. So thanks for your question, Ralph. Okay. Sharon wants to know, has a director of communications been selected? There has not been one selected yet. So there you go. Okay. Anthony says, I don't understand why our elected officials in the U.S. Congress have publicly stated that they would defy the Supreme Court, and we down here in Texas sit on our hands while we're being invaded from down south, close the border. Hey, and that's not the only one. That was not the only question. Here was another one from Yolanda who says, what are we going to do with the southern border? Look, the border's on everyone's minds. We've been talking this issue. We've been trying to work it, make it happen, trying to expose it, and so the power right now is in the hands of these people. Now, here's what's great about this. We've been crying out loud, very loudly, that this is an invasion for a very long time. Okay. Google it, right? Go search through our news on the website. We have been able to consistently hammer that message home that it's an invasion for years, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. Sometimes you don't get the payoff on your work immediately, right? I know Kara talks about this a lot. She talks about how people have a need for this sort of instant gratification, and let me tell you, that's the difference in living in a lean-to, building a lean-to in a cathedral. Yeah, lean-to can keep you out of the rain. Doesn't take very long to get it done, but it still ain't a cathedral that could take a generation or two to build, right? That's the difference. And sometimes it takes steady, constant drumbeat on the issue, repetitive over and over and over until people get it, until you shift the debate. Look, the TEXIT issue is a perfect example. I've said it time and time again. When the TNM was founded in 2005, Texas support for TEXIT was polling in single digits, right? Back then it was Texas secession or Texas independence is what they called it. It was TEXIT, right? It was polling in single digits. And now we're at 66%. Some people think that somehow that happened overnight, right? That suddenly the TNM popped up and, we're just a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys. No, it took a lot of work, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of road miles traveled, a lot of hard heads knocked, a lot of politicians lambasted or praised, a lot of organizations spoken to, a lot of doors knocked and flat. It took an awful lot of work to move the needle from single digits, which it was 7 or 8%, right, to 66%. A lot of work. Okay. That's the way this is. And the only way you are going to get these dead butt politicians off a dead center and get the invasion declaration that you need and get the resources given to the Texas State Guard, fully militarize them and get them deployed, is to raise a whole lot of holy hell and let these people know that this is what you want. And yeah, sometimes they're going to turn a deaf ear. Greg Abbott has turned a deaf ear to all of these cries because he doesn't know who I'm sure he knows who he serves. But he's caught between the people of Texas that want this and his aspirations for federal office. And frankly, their fear of the federal government, which is insane to me. When, as a chief executive of Texas, when faced with a choice of protecting your people or taking a knee to 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats in a system that wants to drive your state into powder, grind it into powder, you pick your people every time. Every time. Do your job. Your job is not to placate the federal government. Your job is to be the chief executive and the commander-in-chief of the state of Texas and protect our damn border. I mean, it's that simple. And I get it. Some things are happening down there, right? But I'm also cognizant of the fact that it's not everything that needs to be done to fix the situation. The situation could be fixed like that. But it takes bold action and it takes courage. And frankly, what it takes is to be willing to turn your back on the federal government and say, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you believe your law says. I am going to protect the people of Texas from an invasion. And then do it. And then do it. You're the commander in chief. Yeah, I don't have the slides on here anymore where I could show you specifically where the authority rests for the governor to do this very thing. But the only person, because remember, we just had a primary. And Republican voters had an opportunity to reject COVID mandates, COVID lockdowns, and weakness against the federal government on the border issue. They had an opportunity to do that. Literally all of the main challengers for Greg Abbott were there. They knew it needed to be declared an invasion. They knew the Texas Military Department needed to be fully equipped, fully militarized, and deployed down there as a border protection force, and it needed to be shut down. They knew it, and they would have done it. But instead, voters perhaps chose status quo. That is, if you are cool with, if you think what happened in March was copacetic, right? So anyway, look, that's where I am. I'm just as frustrated as you are. Everywhere, anyone I talk to outside of Texas brings up the border issue. They want to know what's happening and why it's happening. They want to know why so many of them are being put on planes and sent to their states. And they blame our governor for not standing up for the sovereignty of the state of Texas and our sovereign borders. They blame him. It's frustrating, I know. But, here's the bottom line. The only way we will ever get full control over our borders and immigration here in Texas is Texas independence. Because that's what self-governing independent nation states get to do, is they get to dictate their own border security and immigration policy. So I don't like the fact that Abbott's been weak on the border. I don't think the federal government will ever do anything to protect our border. In fact, I think they're only going to make it worse. I don't think it matters who's president, because there are 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats there in Washington D.C. and across the U.S. that believe in that ideology that's making this happen, right? So the only way you're going to fix this problem is to make Texas a self-governing independent nation. Period. Full stop. You want to fix it? That's how you fix it. Once and for all, and you fix it. And then we set our own policy and we do whatever we want to on our border, and that's how it works. Ooh, man, I kind of got wound up on that one. And Kara came in and filled my cup. This is my Hellcat cup. All right, let's get another one here. Okay, this is from Jody in Austin. Jody, thank you. Daniel, why do some people say that the United States would totally fall apart if Texas were to secede? What are your thoughts about that? Thank you for all your hard work. Well, don't thank you for your kind words. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I don't think that Texas, I think Texas leaves, Texas won't be the only state to go, right? Because all states have the same right that we have, which is the right of self-determination, a right acknowledged by the United States and the federal government, right? So they all have that same right. So, and we have said time and time again that the arguments that I make in the TEXIT book could apply equally to many other states. Some it could, some it couldn't. But many of the arguments still flow, right? Those 180,000 pages of federal laws, rules, and regulations that we're suffocating under, other states are suffocating under them too. The 2.5 million elected bureaucrats, they got to deal with them too. So, when I ask the question, if your state was already a self-governing independent nation in every respect, and instead of talking about withdrawing, the question was about whether or not you would join the union, knowing everything you know about the federal government right now, would you vote to join the union? That's a question and a conversation that every state needs to be having. Now, look, some of them are perfectly happy with the federal system. And that's their prerogative, right? If we're saying that the right of self-determination is a fundamental right, and those people say that they want to be a part of that system, then so be it, right? That's their choice. Doesn't have anything to do with us. Let them be them. That's what they want. So I don't think the United States would totally fall apart. What I think is that states would start having that conversation about self-government. And I don't think it's a red state, blue state thing either, right? This conversation is happening in places like California and New Hampshire and Vermont, Alaska. Same conversations are happening, okay? But, there are going to be some that don't feel like they can make a go of it on their own. They like the federal system. There are going to be states that say, look, we would be better off as a self-governing independent nation. And at the end of the day, there's nothing saying that when states leave like this, they don't get along anymore, right? We've seen examples all around the world of self-governing independent nations, right, that trade with one another. They engage in mutual defense, right? They have travel between one another, what is effectively borderless travel between them, or minimal checks. I mean, these things exist, and they're not aberrations. In fact, it's the way the world works. It's just that people here don't really understand that. So, do I think that the United States would fall apart? I don't know. I think frankly, the United States is in danger of falling apart if we don't do this, right? If we don't show that there is a better path forward of political independence and self-determination, but mutual respect and cooperation and trade, travel, and the very minimal things, right? Like self-governing independent nations. And then you can let California be California, and they can do whatever they want to do. And Texas can be Texas. Florida can be Florida, and New Hampshire can be New Hampshire, and Alaska can be Alaska. And, however, and whatever entities, whatever states are left within the United States, we can be friends with them too. We can trade, we can travel, we can do those things. But I'm going to tell you that the United States of America as an entity right now is on a trajectory for a crack up. And so we have to start making some really difficult decisions, and people need to get really serious about this, because the last thing that you want is to be tethered to the Titanic when it reaches the bottom of the North Atlantic. We need to not just get away for, self-preservation or survival, or, all of those things are great to preserve these principles that we all hold in high esteem, but to really show other states that there is a way, a better path, a way that we can do this, and really have a safe place here in North America for the principles of freedom and liberty and independence. So, I don't think that, to be honest with you, I don't think Texas withdrawing from the union is going to have much of effect on the survivability of the United States as a political and economic entity. Thanks for your question, Jody. That's a good one. I like that one. Okay. Judy wants to know, I do wonder what kind of currency will Texas have when we become independent? Shouldn't it be the same as it is now? Look, Applebee's gift cards, Kohl's bucks. I'm just kidding. Had to insert that in there. Excuse me. I get the question. I get the currency question a lot. So what I would encourage is one of two things. I talk about it somewhat in my book, TEXIT, right, which you can get on the website at tnm.me. But lest you think I'm hawking a book, you can also get information about that for free at texitnow.org. That's texitnow.org. And we talk about the currency thing. We talked about it on here quite often, kind of where we are, the gap between where we are and where we probably want to be post-TEXIT is not as far as many people think. The fact is, it's not a decision that we have to make day one. We don't even have to make it before the TEXIT vote or immediately after the TEXIT vote. But I would suggest that, given kind of U.S. federal monetary policy, it's something that we would want to do sooner rather than later after the TEXIT vote. So thank you for your question, Judy. Okay. Okay, Robbie says, while I have been, will continue to advocate TEXIT, how do we keep the same twits out of any public office? The bureaucracy entrenched in our state is pitiful. And I would encourage you, and I've shown this, and at the risk of being uber repetitive for people, I would encourage you to go look on our YouTube channel. Go look in the videos on TNM TV. There's actually an article about it on the website. All you have to do is search for the term electile dysfunction, right? We have a whole video that covers that, that covers the rationale, like why it is that we have crummy politicians now in Texas, why we have to stomach them, and how TEXIT completely upsets that apple cart. Right. And I talk about this in Q&As at speeches all the time. And I bet you dollars to donuts on one of the events that's coming up. That'll happen as well. Okay. I got time for a couple more questions. Here's one. Laura says, any chance Daniel Miller will be speaking in the Tyler, Lindale, or Longview area soon? It just so happens. The answer to your question is yes. Let me throw this back up here. If you go to site, tnm.me/events, you can do all kinds of fun searches here. But I've got some dates coming up, actually up in that area. And there's some more that are in the works that are getting ready to be added to the calendar. But August 9th, I will be in Houston, and I'm going to be in Harlingen on the 6th. The anniversary date of my line in the sand moment, August 24th, I'm going to be up in Avenger, right north of Longview, and that's where I get to celebrate my line in the sand day. So I'm pretty excited to be at 5D Steakhouse there. Darlene runs a phenomenal. Of course, I'll get to see my good buddy, my high school friend Jason, up there as well. And then, of course, on the 25th, the day after, I'll be up in Nash, up near Texarkana. So, be sure to check that out in the calendar. A lot more dates are coming up as well. All right. So, hey, much for your super chat. I do appreciate that. Oh, Donna says, hang on, let me show that one just to encourage everyone. Volunteered for local coordinator, but need a new group for where I now live. How to create a new local group. All of those local groups, and I'm pretty sure what you're talking about are the groups that are on the website, right, or on the app. There are groups for just about every city, but here's the thing. Um, as we are slowly trying to bring all of our data into the new system, those things spin up based off of login. So if your address is right in the system, when you go to log in, it will, and the group doesn't already exist, it will create the group. And then sometime shortly thereafter, it will begin to migrate other people that are registered supporters into that group. So you guys can communicate and discuss. And I tell you, one of the things I've been asked, we're doing working on some tutorial videos for the app and for the social media aspects and the groups. But I got hit up the other day and somebody said I needed to host a webinar. So here's a question for you. If you think that I should host an overview and a webinar, then, to cover the website, to answer your questions, not a coffee talk, but a special webinar to deal with showing you how best to use the site and explore all the features and answer your questions. Drop it in the chat. Let me know. Okay. Oh man, you guys are dropping a lot of questions on me here at the tail end. Okay. Hey, Eric, thank you so much for your super chat. I do appreciate that. All right. YouTube ad Brad, thank you so much. Oh man, thank you so much. Here, I'll just start flashing these things up here. Hey, thank you so much for your super chat. That is phenomenal. Really do appreciate it. Okay, man, you guys have got a lot of questions here at the tail end, and we will just kind of go through these as I start my wrap up here. Man, you guys have been more than generous, and we really do appreciate it. Okay. Donnie wants to know if we've had any interactions with Ernest Bales. Not anything positive. He was not on HB 1359. He's somebody you're going to have to work pretty doggone hard. Man, you guys have had a lot of good questions coming in here. Let me see if I can rapid fire some of these. Gloria says she will never travel outside of Texas again. I get you, Gloria. I understand. You've been all over the world. Gloria was a merchant marine. Any word from the TNM election peeps? And thank you for the super chat. Expect something very soon, a report and an announcement of a pretty amazing team up that I believe is about to happen. So we'll deal with that one. Here's a question. Ivy says, this is going to be a quick one. Ivy says, I have seen that Google states we are net negative state. TNM states we spend more money. How can I prove it to people? Download the report. The math is actually super simple. And what I will tell you is that in 2005, the last report where we had seen the tax parity survey was from I think it was the Tax Policy Foundation. And it showed we were upside down, and then all of a sudden, where we were again a donor state, and it had been in every report where Texas was sending more money than it got back, and then all of a sudden, somewhere right around the time 2008, 2009, all of a sudden it flipped, right, and all these reports started saying that Texas was getting more money than it was putting in, and here's what they did: they decided they didn't want to be embarrassed anymore. So they fudged on the math. And how they fudged on the math was quite simple. What they did was they took retiree benefits plus some other things that are not supposed to be included and included them in there. And so what we did was we did our own study. We went and we pulled the numbers. And what we did was we pulled the numbers from the comptroller, from the Office of Management and Budget on the federal side. I mean, we pulled them from every place we could and we mashed it all together. And here's what we said. What is the tax burden that Texans are paying right now? How much to the feds? How much to the state? And then how much is the state spending in matching funds? And how much is the feds sending in that we have to match? So you put it in two pots and you say, Here's how much we're bringing in. Here's how much they're sending in. And you set that, you take one number and you subtract it from the other, and you get what the overpayment is. And you don't include things that are federal pension benefits. For example, federal pension benefits, which they have a tendency to include. They take federal pension benefits and include it in there, even though you can live outside of the United States and collect federal pension benefits, right? So that's not an equivalent number for what a post TEXIT, what a post TEXIT situation would be. So they fudge the numbers, and the reason being is for the first 4 years of our existence, it was a number that we hammered over and over and over. We hammered that 2005 tax policy foundation study, and we just said, look, here's the third party numbers. And then all of a sudden, all these people decided that, oh, we're going to get in the game. I mean, people want to throw Wallet Hub. Well, I mean, who the hell is Wallet Hub, right? They're a website. Okay. Well, why should I believe them? Well, you probably shouldn't, right? Believe your calculator. And we make the report available. We show all the agencies we sourced it from, and we encourage other people to do it. We're in the process of updating that right now. We've been in the process of updating for about a year. But I'm going to tell you, the federal government slow walking their numbers, as you might imagine. There's a whole lot of factors. But anyway, hey, thank you for your question. Okay. Man, that's a Canada question. Glenn, send me that via email. I will answer that for you off to the side because I just don't have enough time because I'm out. I'm already running over. And Mr. Rice, thank you for your super chat. And I can't say that independent Texas will bring back roller rinks. But I can say that you might have a little bit better career. Your roller derby career might be able to take off a little bit better as being a big fish in a smaller pond, right? Go wreck them, right? All right. Well, let's go ahead. Hey, just a reminder, next week, new time, 9 p.m. will be Wednesday night, 9 p.m. We will get the thing done, and I'll be here with my cup of coffee, ready to decompress, and we'll get this thing done, right? Yeah, I think next Wednesday. Yeah, I'll be here next Wednesday. It's Thursday that's the travel day. Got it. All right. Hey, look, just a reminder, if you are not a member of the Texas Nationalist Movement, head over right now, tnm.me/join. That is tnm.me/join. And then, of course, if you'd like to be like so many of these fine folks on the chat tonight, become a volunteer, tnm.me/volunteer. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not remind you to download the Tnm app. You can head over to tnm.me/app and get it downloaded, or you go straight to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. But remember, when you install it, you must already have a Tnm account, which you can get by registering your support on the website. And do not forget, we are 10 days-ish into the TNM's Catalyst campaign. Lots of cool stuff over there. Head over to tnm.me/catalyst. And, let's do this. I mean, let's show these people what we're made of, right? All right. Well, it is time for me to wrap this bad boy up. I want to thank you so much for bearing with me on sliding the time and the day this go around. You guys know how it is. We stay super busy. So I am going to, for your patience, I will leave you with the words I leave you with every single solitary week and at the end of every speech. And they are the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.